Hello, I'm David Buys, your MSU Extension State Health Specialist, and I'm back with you in our conversations about COVID-19. Today I'm joined by Monica Dunn. Monica is a dietetic intern with us here at Mississippi State University, and we're going to talk a bit about emotional eating or stress eating during the quarantines or during these safe at home or shelter in place periods that we're living through right now. So Monica, thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, thank you for having me today. I'm originally from the San Francisco Bay Area, and after I graduated high school, I went to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln to do my nutrition and dietetics in my undergrad. And then I moved to the South, and now I'm in my dietetic internship.
You've done quite a bit of moving around. That sounds like an interesting trajectory, and I'm sure you've gotten some good insights since you have a different perspective on how things are here. So I'm glad you made the trek down south, and we're glad to have you here. Why did you decide to do your project as a dietetic intern in your extension rotation on emotional eating? And talk to us a little bit about your thinking process for getting there.
Yeah, definitely. I think with the current shelter in place, a lot of people are staying inside and working from home and, doing school from home. I sure am. So, with all of that, I just know we have easy access and more access to our fridge and our cupboard for food
Right.
when we're stressed, or anxious. So I think with that, I just figured, this is a very fitting topic for these times.
Well, you're spot on. I have to say I'm feeling that stress myself. And tell us a little bit about the differences in stress eating or emotional eating and then true physical hunger. How would we be able to detect what those differences are?
Absolutely. So when I did my research, there's about 5 areas that we can really look at. So in terms of emotional eating, the first thing is that it occurs almost instantaneously. It's a matter of urgency in your brain. Whereas, with true physical hunger, this is going to occur more gradually, and it's more gradually is recognized, by your body and by your brain. So that I would say is the first one. Then for the second, with emotional hunger, a lot of times you tend to crave foods such as that are more sugary, high in fat. When I'm stressed, I definitely don't crave celery. So I think we've all been there. So it's usually more types of junk food that we're craving.
Right.
Whereas with true physical hunger, at that point, you're just hungry. So you're almost anything healthy, maybe not so healthy, seems appetizing to you. As for our third one, with emotional hunger, there's almost this lack of awareness of food consumption. So we tend to mindlessly eat and sometimes overindulge. Whereas, with true physical hunger, you're going to sit down and, share that meal with your family, or maybe you're just sitting down to eat a snack. But in that time, you're more likely to follow your own, hunger and satiety cues and mindfully eat, as we would call it. As for our fourth tip, with emotional hunger, there's this feeling of hunger, and it's not really specific to a physical location, but rather it's this pestering mental craving. It's almost like instant to your brain. Whereas with true physical hunger, you might experience that, in a physical location, such as your stomach. I know sometimes you might hear your stomach grumbling, right? So,
It's lunchtime. Mine's doing that now.
yeah, it definitely is. So, yeah, absolutely. And I would say with the fifth tip, when you complete I guess that time of eating, when you're emotionally eating, unfortunately, a lot of times it ends in guilt or in shame. Whereas when you consume food in a state of true hunger, it usually ends in satisfaction and satiety.
there are quite a number of differences there. And so for our listeners and viewers, I want to let you know that we're going to be posting a blog post, giving you a blog post that outlines some of these after our session together today. So you don't have to remember all those, but I do encourage you to go back and look at the blog post. It makes me think, Monica, about the importance of and I know this is not where we plan to go today, but the importance of being mindful of what we buy and bring into our house. So if we don't stock our pantry or our cupboard with the foods that we're more likely to eat when we're stress eating or eating out of emotion, we don't have that option, particularly during the shelter in place order. I know that I've tried to be mindful of that when I've gone to the grocery store to stock up for this period. But, occasionally I do go down the wrong aisle and end up with something that may be less than ideal in my buggy. Nevertheless, it is a goal that we should have, to try to only bring those things, what I like to say, across the threshold of the door, that fit a more healthy profile for our diets. What are some tips to help avoid going to our fridge or cupboard though, when you're feeling stressed or anxious or upset? How can we kind of direct ourselves to do something different?
Right. Well, I would say the first thing that's really important is to identify what type of hunger that you're feeling. So if you do want to go back and look at what we've posted in terms of, those 5 keys, that's a good resource.
Mm-hmm.
I guess another thing I would say is sometimes it's hard to tell, is this true physical hunger? Is this emotional hunger?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not quite sure, I would say maybe try drinking a glass of water, because your body might be telling you that. Yeah, I do too. So, yeah. So if you're thirsty, your body just might be thirsty and in need of hydration rather than being hungry. And I would say once you've identified that, and that it's not true physical hunger, it's important to figure out, okay, what is it that I'm feeling? Am I simply bored and looking for that instant gratification? Are you seeking comfort? Or are you feeling nervous or anxious or stressed? So I think it's really a time to just sit down and really think about, okay, what are the emotions that I'm feeling? And depending on what it is that you are feeling, this will give you a better idea of what strategy to utilize. So I have about 4 to 5 tips and strategies that you might want to utilize if you are experiencing any of these feelings. So let's start with boredom. There are a variety of activities that you can fill your time with, like arts and crafts, reading a good book, listening to a podcast, playing a board game, lots of activities. You could Google a variety of fun activities. Your options are endless. Right. So that's definitely, there's a lot you can do there for boredom. If you are feeling nervous, anxious, or stressed, this might be a good time to call a friend or a family member. Because if you're lonely or upset, this may be a good way to talk about your feelings instead of, maybe avoiding them or self-medicating with consumption of junk food. And I think something that we definitely want to note, that if you are feeling, more severe symptoms of stress, anxiety, maybe symptoms of depression, you always want to seek maybe good counseling service or hotlines. Definitely seek a professional, if you are experiencing those. And another tip I would also say is go outside, get some fresh air. Obviously, we want to maintain social distance, so we want to be mindful of that. But, this can be a good strategy if you're bored or stressed or anxious. And it might help get your mind off the idea of food, give you a good break in between homework or actual work or Netflix. And I guess lastly, I would say find a good workout to do at home. I know YouTube has a variety of free workouts that you can utilize. So I think that's always a good idea. And I guess my last tip would be maybe find time to meditate or pray or journal or listen to music. There are a variety of ways that you can just relax and find ways to be mindful.
I don't necessarily think of myself, Monica, as a like a real arts or artsy type person, but I did find myself the other day on a website of an artist and just scrolling for an extended period of time through some of their work, and that was so relaxing. And again, I don't really find myself to identify as like a real person that's into the arts, but finding even those things that may be a little different from what we usually do can be, you talk about that sort of meditation, prayer, listening to music, finding something outside of ourselves that we can redirect our energy to is really important for our mental health during this time, and certainly the connection between that and eating is so closely related. Is there anything else you want to leave us with today, Monica?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the one thing I really want to leave everyone with is just the importance of being mindful, and that, this is a very stressful time. And so, if you do happen to stress eat or eat a few more cookies here and there, don't beat yourself up about it.
Right.
Okay. We're all going through this. It is a very tough and stressful time. So, maybe use this time to your advantage and get to know yourself better and kind of figure out that food journey and your own health journey. Maybe this is time that you can kind of hone in on that with still giving yourself leniency and having that understanding and grace within yourself.
It's a good point. I talk a lot about with folks that I'm close to about living in this sort of both and tension. It's both important for us to be mindful and graceful with ourselves, and it's important to not just use this as an excuse to go off the off the deep end and eat whatever we want all the time, and that's a hard tension to live in.
Yes, absolutely.
But I hear you saying that's important, so I'm glad you brought that up. Thanks so much for getting on with us today and sharing these insights. As I said, we're going to our listeners and viewers, we're going to be posting this information in a blog post along with this Facebook Live, and you'll be able to find this Facebook Live in video form on that blog post, so you can go back and forth if you want to hear Monica explain a little bit more about what you're reading. We really appreciate you taking time to join us today on this Facebook Live and this conversations about COVID-19, and we certainly invite you to leave comments or thoughts in the chat box down below, in the comments below. And as always, we welcome your insight on what ideas, what topics would be helpful for you moving forward. We want to bring our expertise to bear to help you through this difficult time, through this COVID-19 period. And we'll continue to come to you most Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at noon. And would love to have your ideas for topics that we can cover that would be helpful for you. I encourage you every time I'm with you as we wrap up our time together to stay vigilant and stay healthy. And then, of course, join us next time. Have a great day.